guys, we got to see the best of them. It is now time to talk about the not so great or the worst of them. Hey guys, if you are new here, welcome to the Book Path. I'm Nicole, and if this isn't your first rodeo, thanks for sticking around. So this is take 2 of the worst books of 2025 for me. I filmed this earlier on. The battery ended up dying on it, and when I was trying to go to edit what I did have, found out I really didn't have anything. So now we are filming the worst of 2025 towards the end of January, but time has got away from us. It has been harder to get into the swing of things in January, plus we have had the storms going on, so going through all of that. So we're doing take 2. So as we get into these, I'm going to try to stay with the month that I read them in. I might not remember the characters' names too much, but we will see as we can do what we can do with these. So let's go ahead and get started. In January, we started off 2025 by reading Legacy, which is book 1 in the Coven and the Crow and Shadows by Birdie Rivers. I ended up giving this one 2 stars. It wasn't that it was bad. There were some questions that I had about things. For me, it felt like the prequel novella you get to the actual series. Even though it was like a regular series, it felt like a prequel novella. It was a setup. The characters, you had Ari, because it does say on the back, so I can remember that. Aria is a wolf shifter, and she is feeling kind of like powerless, and she gets matched with Zane, who is a warlock, because in this world you have paranormal creatures, and you also have warlocks, and warlocks have insane amounts of magic, so they usually partner with a familiar, and in many cases that partnership turns to romance. It's like a marriage bond, it's a partnership bond, it's many things all in once, which I thought was really interesting, and the warlock world was interesting where they lived. One of the things is that the plot seemed to have one of those plots where everything kind of just, when they came across an issue, it got solved really easily for them. Ari is at odds with who she is and whether or not she'll be enough, even as she kind of learns and trains with Zane. She's very hesitant to accept Zane and kind of put Zane through the ringer to have this relationship with him. And there's times where she kind of plays this catch and go with him almost, where it's, oh, I really want to be with you, I love you, you know, take me. But then at other points it's like, I don't want anything to do with you, stay away with me. So it was very much Katy Perry's Hot and Cold song with her, which got annoying for me. And everybody else is just like, oh, give her time, give her time, give her time. But it was just, it was getting to be a bit much. There were some things that seemed to be that Ari might be more powerful than she thought, but then it's like certain things didn't play out. And like one of those things I think is that she was having like visions, but then she's not really sharing her visions. So it was just, there was, it felt like the ball got dropped on a few things, which made it feel more like I said, the prequel novella, where even though it is a novel size, the way things were going out, it just felt more like setting up the world, which it kind of is for this series. This is kind of like Ari and Zane's story, and I think going forward it's Ari and Zane's like kids. Spoilers, but I mean, I told you they are getting kind of married in this one. I do have the other 3 books in this series, and it, like I said, it is an interesting world, so I'm going to continue with the series despite giving this 2 stars, because I think, like I said, I'm looking at this as a novella, whereas the other ones I feel might be more fleshed out in the world. Maybe the characters will be a little bit better for me to read, just because I think we're going to be with those characters longer than these ones. So that was the first book, but we did end up giving it 2 stars. Next up for February, we ended up reading Skin White as Snow by A.A. Warren. This is a retelling of Snow White and Cinderella kind of mixed together. I ended up giving it 2 stars. This was kind of novella size, so it was very short. It had space to become something a lot better with the way that they were trying to incorporate these two fairy tales into one story. And you kind of have it where Snow White is, it's never really said, but it's hinted at that she's like a vampire. And the dwarfs are kind of her sentries that are supposed to guard over her, as she's supposed to be placed under sleep to protect her and to kind of protect the world from her as she goes through her, vampiric transformation. And it's never really touched upon like how long she's supposed to sleep. Is this a permanent sleep? What kind of goes on with it. It's not really touched upon. But she's like, I want to kind of live before I have to do this sleep. And that's when she hears about the ball going on in a kingdom that she's traveling through, which is Cinderella's ball. And she kind of crashes the ball, if you will. She meets Cinderella's prince and captivates him. So she kind of steals him away from his own fairy tale, so to speak. And you do have Cinderella, who gets mixed up in all of this as well. And you have Snow White, which I did think this was a good take on it. Snow White wants to live and explore and have this life, and she wants to be kind of in love, but at the same time she's terrified of her own, like I said, I feel like she's a vampire, so like her own vampirism, and she's afraid of what she'll do to the prince and what she'll do. So it's just kind of going through that. Like I said, it had plot points and things of intrigue where I was like, this could be something really interesting, but it just didn't carry through with that. And I felt like that was just because it was really short. So it left questions, it left a not as thought out world, or fleshed out world. The characters, we didn't really get to explore them too much. The prince, for example, just kind of seemed to go with it of, oh, she's really beautiful, I'm now in love with you, I'm gonna, now risk everything in my kingdom and my life to save you over like a few dances, which, it didn't really make that much sense. But I think had it had time to flesh out and have explore the relationships between these characters, I think it really could have been something great. So if it ever does get expanded, I know sometimes people will take novellas and then they'll expand them into a novel and add to them. If it does, I would be curious to go back to it and see how it changes and where it goes from there, because it did have basis. It just, for the length of the novel, it didn't have the follow through in a lot of areas for me. So 2 stars for that one. So next up, we ended up reading The Deer and the Dragon by Piper C.J. I was really looking forward to this one because I just thought that cover was just kind of mesmerizing. And it had this world explored where it said it was going to be a lot of like different types of mythologies and characters from mythology and creatures from mythology, of not just Greek mythologies, but Norse mythologies and all over the place. And that really intrigued me because usually you see a lot of Greek mythology. We've been seeing some Norse mythology come into play, but this having like a whole bunch of different varieties of different world mythologies was really intriguing to me. You come across our main character, Marlowe, who has an interesting past, so to speak, and she has this person in her mind where she never knows if it's a figment of her imagination or if this is a real entity that she kind of talks to ever since her childhood. And as she's grown up, she's kind of fought against it, thinking that, maybe she's crazy and she's been on medications, and just trying to live her life, where stuff starts to happen and she realizes like people are after her. She doesn't understand why. And then it gets broken down for her where she has powers, and that the man who has been a figment of her imagination really is not a figment at all. And he has now been kind of taken as prisoner, and she has to kind of go on this quest and journey to save him. Interestingly enough, mythology played very little role in this, which was extremely disappointing. This is more of an angels demons battle kind of going on, which is not a bad thing. It's just not one of the fortes that I really like. So that really kind of took a dive for me on reading it, because I was expecting exploring different pantheons, exploring different, you know, creatures of mythologies, and it really didn't have that. It was much more focused on the battle between kind of heaven and hell going on. There were a few, like I said, a few gods and goddesses that were kind of mentioned in here, but not as heavily as the blurbs and everything would have made me believe. The main character, Marlowe, she's okay to me. Like, I didn't really love her, but I didn't like fully hate her. There were moments where I got really annoyed with her. Because she kind of has the, you know, she's fighting everything at every turn. But then at the same time, she talks, I think it's been a while, but I think she talks about how much like she loved mythology, but then the mythology, the world, she doesn't really know that much about. So it was kind of like fighting with what she was supposed to be, I guess. So I ended up giving it 2 stars. I'm not continuing with the series. It just, it was what it was for me, but it didn't, like, it didn't move me. I really, it was a lot different than what I thought it was going to be going into it, and I wish, like, and it just kind of ended up where it ended up. So I'm not going to continue with the series, giving it 2 stars and just kind of moving on. Next up, we ended up reading Cocky Professor by M.A. Lee for April. This is while we still had access to the Cocky Hero Club that we were trying to go through the books. This one was interesting. You had a girl who was trying to, I think she was trying to work in like the law department, and she had just gotten a kind of an internship. She's trying to finish out her last year of college. And she gets her internship, and the guy that she's kind of meeting, that's going to be her boss that she's going to work with, it's kind of, they butt heads right off the bat, and they have this kind of like, not really enemies to lovers, but maybe a little bit more of like the rivals to lovers in the workforce. And when her classes start back up, lo and behold, this guy is not only somebody she's going to be working with, but he is her professor. And rather than get like some kind of like, let me get a different course to fill this, or I need this course, like let me postpone it or whatever because of like conflict or anything like that, she continues in the class. Of course, they are attracted to each other, which leads to a kind of secret relationship between the two, and just kind of what happens should they be discovered and where they go from there. I did not like the main female character in this. I did not like it. At first I liked her because even though she was with family like that would pay for her college, she was trying to go the I'm going to take care of myself and provide for myself and work hard for myself, which I respected and I liked that. But as the book went on and she's dating this guy in secret, the stuff that she would pull in their relationship was just very childish to me. And it was like, there was one part where there's a party going on, and she asks him if he's going to go to the party. The party is for college students. He is a professor. It is not a good thing or a good look for the professor to show up at a college party where there is drinking involved. And he tries to tell her this, and she's like, oh yeah, you're right. Then she goes to the party, she gets a little tipsy, she's calling him, and she's like, you don't love me because you're not gonna come to the parties, and I don't know. And she's just going off the deep end, like just getting all upset because he's not doing things that she wants him to do, even though she's the one that's kind of telling him, I want to keep this a secret because I don't want it reflecting bad on me because of a student. I know that you can't come to this party because you're a professor, but I'm still going to whine and complain about it. Like, it was just like, what are you doing? And I was really hoping that like the professor would kind of just put her in her place and be like, no, if this is how you're going to act, no, and then have her kind of come to her senses. And that doesn't really happen. So it was just kind of like very much the relationship of a whiny, immature college girl being in an age gap relationship with a guy who's just like kind of constantly having to nurture her and take care of her while they have steamy, spicy moments. Like, it just wasn't, yeah, I just really didn't like her, and she kind of destroyed it for me. Sorry. I ended up giving it 2 stars for those obvious reasons. And yeah, we'll just move on from that one. We'll just move on. Next up, we had Wolf Spell that we read in the month of May. This is written by J.N. Moon. This I ended up giving 2 stars. It had interesting premise. You have paranormal creatures, werewolves, vampires, dragon shifters, things like that, witches, and kind of this war between all of the, I guess, species, if you would call them that. And basically our main female character, she has left the coven that she grew up in, and she's trying to join this coven in a new area where she is, and one of her friends goes missing, and they're starting to point fingers at it maybe being the local wolf pact. So she is taking it upon herself to kind of investigate this. And when she does it, she really gets in a mess of trouble. She finds out she's kind of mated to this wolf who is the alpha, and there's a lot of dynamics going on within the pack. You find out there's some other things going on, and it just kind of takes off from there, where there is a group, like, I don't want to call them another coven, but it's maybe like a warlock faction, that they are wanting power, and they are doing some not so nice things to get that. So it's kind of this, the witch and her alpha and some other characters that are going to team together to kind of put a stop to the warlock. What kind of put it into 2-star category for me is it didn't feel that as much of the plot was as flushed out as I would have liked it to be. A lot of things, when they ran up against a problem, magically somebody knew somebody who could solve the problem for them, and it got solved, or it was just like one of those cases where luck is just on their side every single time. So it never made it feel where all of the problems they were coming up against were really problems, and it just kind of deflated the tension, so to speak, in the book. So it had interesting things. It had an interesting storyline. It's just the way that it was carried out wasn't as well done as I would have liked it to. Some of the characters were fun and interesting in the beginning, but it didn't feel like we really got to know them as well as I would have liked as well. So it just kind of felt like the ball got dropped on a lot of things. So it ended up being 2 stars for me. Not going to really continue with this series as well. So that was that. Next up, we had another book in May, and that was Cross-Checked by Calla Riley. This one I ended up giving 2 stars. I had read the first book in the series, and I loved it. It was just so much fun and sweetness and goodness, and I really enjoyed it. So I was really excited to read the second book. It's a college hockey romance, where you have one of the guys, I'm going to not try to give spoilers away because there's storylines with these characters in the first book, but you have a guy that is one of the major players in book 1 that creates a lot of tension, and he's now kind of coming to terms with himself after what's happened in book 1, and he meets a girl who he hits it right off with. She hits it off with him. They really like each other, and the girl ends up finding out before he does that he is the person who kind of caused a disrupt in her brother's blossoming or attempt at a relationship in book 1. And so that kind of creates tension. She's also friends with the girl that this guy was causing major disrupts for in book 1. So she kind of keeps it to secret because she's seeing a very different side of him. He doesn't know that she's the little sister of the guy who also happens to be the captain of his hockey team. And so it's just kind of, there's a lot of secrets that go on, and it's kind of like the you're the little sister of my almost enemy, rival, teammate, you know, type of situation. Um, and it's also about the girl that's just like, she doesn't know, she's floundering. She doesn't know if college is really the path for her, what she's wanting to kind of do, but she doesn't want to disappoint her family because of kind of what they've been going through and what you learn about the hardships of their family from book one. Why this one rated so low to me is when they get found out very early on, when they're trying to keep things secret. They get found out very early on, and it basically, everybody agrees to it really early on. So the tension that was there from them having to keep a secret because she's the little sister of everything that transpired in book one, all that tension was gone. Everybody's forgiving. Everybody's like, we're going to go on. We're going to do whatever. So all that tension was gone. Then you have this couple who, like this newfound couple, who they're only together for a few weeks before they're talking marriage and kids and forever and all these things. And while I know that sometimes you meet somebody and you do hit it off right away and you know right away that this is going to be the person for you. I know that happens, but not a lot. And for it to be only a few weeks when he's like, I'm just starting to find myself after all the things I went through in book one. And she's like, I don't really know if I want to be in college or I don't want to be in college. It was just coming across as you had two people who really probably shouldn't have been in a relationship at that point. Like maybe in the future they would be great together and they get together later. But right now it's like they still need that self-discovery. They still need to figure out themselves and their goals and their lives before getting into a relationship with each other, because other than kind of just like little bits of like let me hold you while you're upset, let me cheer you on a little bit, they're really not doing a whole lot to encourage them in their goals and things. They're just kind of there. And that just kind of took away. Like, this is one of the couples where you have this series where every book in the series is a different couple with a member of the team. And this one I felt happened too soon. I felt like there should have been hints at this in the first like book or two, and then maybe their story would be the third or fourth book in the series after you've kind of hinted at things and things have worked themselves out and figured themselves out. Then they could be together. But just throwing them in book two after all the tension that had happened between a lot of the characters in book one, and having it be so forgiven so easily, and having everything just kind of come together a little easily in many things, and then just having them be like, oh, I love you, I'm gonna marry you, we're gonna have kids together, it's gonna be great, and then that's their intention going forward. It just kind of takes away for a lot of possible dynamics in the relationship, a lot of growth in the relationships given where they were at the beginning. So it just was not my favorite book in the series. So I ended up giving it 2 stars. I did continue with the series, and I know I covered, I think, the third book, I want to say maybe sometime over the summer, and that one was a lot better for me. So 2 stars, and that basically brings us on to our last book on this list for 2025, and that was a book that we ended up reading in November, and that is The King of Flesh and Bone by Liv Zander. This was a book that I ended up reading for, I think it was Romantasy, Romantasy Bingo, and this was one where it was a very interesting world. You had this world where it almost seemed like fantasy, post-apocalyptic. There had been a war, there had been something going on, and this king of, basically he's like a king of death. He has holed himself up in his castle, and because he's doing that, death is not coming to these people, like proper rest, I should say. So these people die, and they kind of are zombified, and as they're zombified, they will wreak havoc in the towns, or they will try to make their way to the castle gates for the King of Death, like to get into his lands, you know, for rest. So they're just like piles and piles and piles of these, you know, people and animals and everything all in this like zombified form. And you have this girl who, she was married and her husband had passed away, and she's kind of seen as the town pariah. That part of this is because she has been barren, she hasn't been able to have any children, and she's just socially mocked and scorned for these things. She feels very bad. She feels like she, you know, should have been better for her husband while he was alive, and that all these things kind of happen. She is a little bit of a healer, and even though she is this healer, people still, it's like, well, I'll let you help me, but I'm still not gonna like you. On a night where it's kind of said that the dead rise and try to go to the king's castle, she has her husband, who is in this zombified form. She worries that he's going to try to do this, which she doesn't want that for him. She wants to be at rest. So it's her plan to put weight on his gravesite to make it so that he can't escape it, to get to this and be a part of this like mob, which is not really the great thing for these people who have passed. And in the process, she ends up getting entrapped in her horse's kind of harness and dragged by her horse, who is basically on death's doorway, as the horse takes her to the castle of the King of Death. And not only that, he gets through because animals are allowed through the doors, but mankind is not. And because she is being dragged, she makes it past. But the interesting thing is she is still very much alive. And the king sees her and he's like, I will make you, you know, fine, I'll take you. You'll be my new like plaything. And he very much abuses that term plaything, where acts are extremely questionable to what they're feeling or doing. Lots of spice in this book, and the girl wants to fight everything. She doesn't want to be there, and yet at a moment's notice she's giving in to all his whims in all these spicy moments. It's kind of them being in their relationship almost as if they were trying to do some sort of Hades Persephone's retelling in this. You have the King of Bone, basically. He has brothers who have control over other things, and they just kind of like love to antagonize each other. And you also have this growing unrest in the human kingdom that you have people trying to seek power. They're not wanting to obey these gods anymore. And you also have them wanting to basically kill the god of bone, because they think if they do that, then death will be restored to the land, and like harmony will be restored. And obviously just kind of what's going on with that, and the tension and the chaos that's kind of going on with that. I just wasn't like, while the world was intriguing, I didn't feel like the plot was really going anywhere. I didn't really feel like there was going to be growth. Like all of a sudden she just loves him and accepts him and knows she wants to be with him. There wasn't growth. Like he's not a very redeeming person. So for me, I was just trying to be like, well, why all of a sudden, when he really hasn't been that great to you? He really does keep you as a prisoner and a plaything, going so far as, in fact, because he is the King of Bone, he breaks her legs basically to prevent her from running away, and then he can heal her when he wants to. So there's that kind of darker aspect to it. And it was just, for me, it was a toxic relationship. And I just was like, no, I'm not a huge fan. I was waiting for the redemption. I was waiting for the love and the growth and the understanding to happen. It just wasn't happening for me in any form. Like even just like a grain, like, okay, if you're just real, maybe like she's realizing she just likes that about him, that would have been something, but it just didn't go that way for me. So I ended up giving it 2 stars, and that is basically that that is my worst books of 2025. Let me know in the comments below if you read any of these and you disagree with them being the worst. Let me know. Like, let me know what you really loved about it, because I'd be curious to see. You know, no judgment. We all like what we like, and sometimes I don't like a book and somebody else likes a book, and sometimes, you know, I love a book and somebody else doesn't like it. It's just the way it is. But for me, for 2025, these were the lower scoring books on my list and on my TBRs. I'm not going in for my DNFs. I did have quite a few DNFs this past year, but I figured I would keep my worst books list to books I actually did finish, so that I could give a little bit better reasoning of why I didn't like it, just instead of, oh, well, I read up to like 50 pages and it just was not happening, so I DNF'd. Didn't want to do that to you guys. So those are my worst books of 2025. Let me know what some of your worst reads were for 2025 in the comments below. And other than that, I hope you guys are staying well. Like I said, I'm filming this towards the end of January, which is extremely late for this video to go up. But like I said, for reasons in the beginning, that is why. For those of you that were affected by the winter storms that happened, I just wish you well. Like, it didn't hit us as hard. We are grateful for. We were told we were going to get a lot worse than what we did. So extremely grateful for that. But I know others were not as fortunate. So my thoughts and prayers go out to you guys. I hope you guys are staying safe. I hope you guys are staying warm. I hope that anybody that is without power, that you won't be without power for much longer, that they are able to get that turned back on for you, and that hopefully somehow you have some alternate heating sources that are keeping you warm while you do this wait. But just stay safe, stay warm, and hopefully everything will get better for you very quickly. So with that, to those who weren't affected by the storms as well, stay safe, stay warm, stay hydrated, drink your warm beverages now that the cold is upon us. Winter has finally come, it seems. And just, you know, I keep hoping that 2026 is going to be a better year for everybody. And with that said, look forward to seeing you guys in the next video. Bye.